Well, this is one I'm not so sure I'm qualified to talk about. And that is friendships, because I'm kind of an introvert, had a few friends, but I was wondering whether maybe it's the very fact that I don't have a huge amount of friends and have not been that eager to make friends may make me more qualified to talk to people who would like to make more friendships than somebody who's a natural. There are some people who friends just glom onto them like magnets. It's like I'm a terrible piano teacher because it came naturally to me. I can't teach anybody. Whereas with friends, it was a struggle. I had to do a lot of thinking and reassessing. And so anyway, I'm going to share with you what this not natural friend maker has done to make his few friends. And not just me, but what seems to work for my clients. Again, I don't like to overpromise. But certainly it is true that most videos and articles and books, TV shows that are on relationships are always about romantic relationships or secondarily parenting. Very few, I guess surprisingly, about friendships. We pay lip service to the importance of friends, but not much attention is paid to it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's that people just tend to, largely because of serendipity, they happen to meet somebody who sounds like them, looks like them, just seems to be compatible. It's amazing how often I walk down the street and I see people who are friends who kind of almost look like each other. It's almost like the same way as people who have dogs kind of look like themselves. So, how much can be planful, I'm not sure. But I guess I'm going to ask you, I think what I'm going to start is talk about some general ideas about how to make a friend. Then I'm going to try to give some specifics about how to make a friend who is your romantic partner, make a friend of your romantic partner, how to make friends with your parent. If you're an adult, I'm amazed at how few people, people think of their parents as parents, and yet they could be really good friends. Some people do, but I'm wondering whether more might want to, and I'll share some thoughts about that. And then an unusual kind of friendship, which is, I believe the key to education, which is mentoring. I'm not convinced that all the courses in the world are going to make as much difference as a couple of mentors. But maybe that's too strong. But anyway, we'll talk about mentorship. So, I guess to the extent you can be planful, what do you really want in a friend? Are you looking for a confidant? You can choose more than one. A confidant, somebody to have fun with, to giggle with, have intellectual debates on, who can talk about things that maybe publicly can't be talked about. Politically, we are in a cancel culture. Are you looking for an activity partner, somebody to go just do stuff with? Whether it be sports, when COVID lightens up, going to sports events, clubs, theater, whatever, bike riding, activities, sports partner, tennis, basketball. So I guess the next thing I want to talk about, so to kind of keep that in mind, and you kind of test the waters with people, and you see how well they, how compatible. And again, it may not be that planful. You may meet somebody just happen to sit next to you, or in class, or bump into each other in a bathroom. I hear that women bond immensely in the bathroom, over at the mirror, not the stalls. So how do you go about nurturing a friendship? Now, some of this is right out of How to Win Friends and Influence People, but it's actually right. There's a reason it's, 80 years after its publication, it's still a top bestseller, and it's right. Most people like to talk about themselves and about the things that they care mostly about. And for different people, it's different things. And part of your job is, if you're trying to make a friendship or deepen a friendship, it's to find out what they care most about. Is it money? Is it career? Is it health? Is it family? Is it the sports team? Is it politics? What do they care most about? Is it their ego? Is it their looks? I have to get some water there. And then see to what extent you want to focus on their needs and to what extent you want your own. Obviously, the best relationship is where you're spending roughly half the time focusing on what's their number one priority or number two priority, at least that priority for the day, and the other half, focused on you. And of course, it doesn't have to be every meeting is that, but when all's said and done, I don't think a friend can be a very good friend if you're if 90% of the time is focusing on them. Like I've heard of people who, broke up with their friends because everything was like a pity party. All they wanted to do was complain. That tends to get old pretty quickly. So, asking questions. My favorite two questions is really keep coming back to them because they seem to work so well for myself and clients. Which is, what are you thinking about these days, and what are you looking forward to? That can often tease out what are their high priorities at the moment, or they could be enduring. But at least, those are great questions to ask, even with people you already know. What are you thinking about these days? What are you looking forward to? And then, really being sensitive. Are you getting your needs met? Your, whatever, emotional needs, activity needs, all those things we're talking about, intellectual discussion. And more broadly, do you end up feeling better about yourself because of spending time with them? There are some people who actually somehow manage to make you feel less than. That ain't good. And yet some people just stay with that. So try to stay vigilant to, every time you get, or most times you get together with this person, whether it be phone, Zoom, in person, whatever, socially distanced, do you end up feeling better about yourself? Do you feel like you're helpful to that other person? I mean, that can feel really great. It is better to give than to receive. So if in the end you're feeling you're being helpful to that person, that can feel great. So those are some generic thoughts about making a friend. But I want to talk now about your romantic partner. In the beginning of the relationship, in a romantic relationship, the infatuation, the anesthetizing effect of sex, and you're flying, and so all of their liabilities seem to not matter very much. But alas, that infatuation phase invariably ends if the relationship lasts long enough for it to end. And then you get down to, hopefully sex will remain good for a long time, but the friendship certainly needs to take a bigger and bigger role. And so when you're trying to be friends with a romantic partner, all the generic advice I gave previously is still applicable. It's asking questions about them and what they care about. It's sharing what you care about and seeing whether they're in their own world, or are they really egotistical? Are they supportive of you? And it's really easy at the end of a workday to not want to listen well. But as corny as it sounds, a good friend is a good listener. Generally not interrupting unless they're really going on a long rant or you've heard it 30 times before. Sometimes they want to be interrupted because they realize they tend to be off on a tangent. But generally, the best friends, whether it's your romantic partner or not, are people who listen to you really well without interrupting and maybe asking a follow-up question or a comment that usually doesn't disagree. Occasionally you can, but it usually builds on what you've said, amplifies on it, that gives you earned praise. Look for that in your romantic partner, in your platonic friendships, and you try to do the same. Again, easier said than done. I know I think as I'm listening to my own podcasts that I end up sounding sanctimonious, or at least making all this sound easier than it is. I recognize fully that it is not easy. So I like to think of all this as aspirational. Am I perfect at it? No. Do I try to do those things? Absolutely. And so that's all I ask of you, is to maybe you'll find one or two things in these episodes of How to Do Life that you say, damn it, I want to try to do this. And that would make it worth the time. I like to think, I don't know. Now I want to talk about parents. Both my parents are now gone. Fortunately, they both lived a nice long life. But yet, as long as they lived, I always just thought of them as my parents. I never somehow stopped to think that they could be my friend. Now, my mother wouldn't, because she was just so different from me. She was a party girl. But, my dad was me. He was just a hard-working guy, just like me, and a serious guy, quiet. I'm not so quiet, but his recreations were very quiet. He was cartooning and gardening and photography, very quiet man. And he could have been my friend. I should have, and I'm inviting you to do this. Ask your parents, or one parent or both parents, whichever who your intuition says could actually be a friend. Things like, what were you like as a child? Did you have friends? What were they like? What did you like to do? What did you like about school? What did you not like about school? What did you have hopes and dreams? Did you have worries? What was your best moments? What was your worst moments? When did you leave your parents? How did that feel? When you were my age, what were the issues you were dealing with? When you were 17 and starting to become an adult, what were you thinking? What were your career goals, relationship goals, other goals, political views? And then move to the present. Now, what are you thinking about for the next few years of your life? And then this disgusting little topic that probably needs to be discussed with every parent when they're older, certainly, is, do you have any wishes for your memorial? Cremate, 50s party, afterwards everybody celebrating with great food, whatever. I really think that those kind of conversations, especially in this, I believe this is an ever harder world. I'm certainly not happy with the unbelievable, loud and proud, critical, cancel culture, denigrating anybody who doesn't agree with you, just destroys them, squashes them. It has always been a hard world. In the workplace where you no longer really have security of employment, you get dumped at the drop of a hat. But I think now everybody's walking on tenterhooks, eggshells, less lofty phrase. So being able to be a really good friend with your parent could be very, very helpful, very important. When I come back, I want to talk about a very special kind of friendship, mentorship, how to be a great mentor, how to be a great protege. Anyway, stay with me. I'm Marty Nemko. This is How to Do Life. Thank you for staying with me. We're talking about friendships, not romantic relationships, sexual relationships, but relationships with peers, activity partners, and the like. Being friends with your romantic partner, and I talked about being friends with your parent. If you're an adult, your parent is not just a parent. Your parent potentially in this ever harder world might be an island of peace and support. Hopefully, doesn't always occur. Somebody you can count on, hopefully. I wish it happened, we could count on it more often. In any case, though, but the last thing I want to talk about today, the kind of friendship, is mentorship. I think most people feel that they've changed more from one-on-one relationships with a mentor, a good mentor, than from many classes. Because it's one-on-one, it's individualized, it's got an emotional component, and ideally it could be a reciprocal one. So here are my thoughts on finding a mentor, making the most of a mentor, and you being a good mentor. Finding a mentor. Some people are simply too busy at their stage in life to give you much time or effort, or they're self-absorbed, or they're just not good at that kind of thing. But you might think about people who are either in your current life or past life, who you sense were wise, who you respected, who you could learn a lot from, whether it be professionally or personally, even if it had been a long time. And you don't say, would you be my mentor? It's too big an ask. It's like meeting somebody at a party and saying, hey, you want to go to bed? It's too fast. But if it's somebody who you think back on, it could be recent, it could be somebody in the past, who you feel would be potentially a good mentor, test the waters, put your toe in the water by asking a question. Saying, It's been an awful long time since we've spoken. It may be the weirdest thing in the world, but I'm having this dilemma around X. This career issue, this personal issue, whatever. And I think back on our little relationship and how much I respected the fact that you blah, blah, whatever. And saying, I'm wondering if you have an opinion about this question. And then ask the question, whether it be in writing, in an email, or a phone call, or whatever. And see what the response is. If the person responds within 24 hours, that's great. If they don't respond at all, or even take a week to respond, that's telling you something else. How wise is the response? How enthusiastic is the response? Were they glad to hear from you? And then, because I do believe in reciprocity, rather than go say, oh good, now he's my mentor, I can ask more questions. Think about whether there anything that you want to, you could do for them. So listen your butt off to them. Ask them questions. So, I really appreciate the help that you gave me on this issue. Tell me about you. What are you thinking about these days? Anything you're looking forward to? Again, those magical 2 questions. And then listen carefully and look for an opportunity to be of help. In a more obvious example would be they say they're moving. Well, offer to help. Or if they say we're about to have a baby, you might just go to Amazon and find the best book on being a great dad, new dad, and send it to them. So there's a measure of reciprocity. Because everybody wants to, nobody wants to feel taken advantage of. So, and it doesn't mean, by the way, just because you have a mentor doesn't mean you have to listen to everything they say. You are the Don. They are the consigliere. No matter how eminent the person is, there's very rare certitude, very little truth, and often you know yourself better than any mentor can. So listen to their advice, consider it, but then you be the executive director, you be the CEO, you be the Don, you decide. Yes, no, take their advice, amplify it, alter it, whatever. Now I want to talk a little bit about how to be a good mentor. I also think it's appropriate, it may feel awkward, but I think it's, if you as a potential mentor think back on people whom you have liked in the past, respected in the past, thought had great potential, and they can be older or younger. The mentor doesn't always have to be older. Think about that person or a person and reach out to them. It's a phrase I've used a number of times in an email. I write very often to former clients to ask how they're doing. And I'll say, this is probably one of the weirder calls you'll have gotten in a while, or weirder emails. And you say, you just popped into my head, and I was wondering how you were doing, or I was wondering, you last we spoke, you were in your doctoral program, or whatever it is. I was just curious how you are. They're going to know, they're going to read between the lines, that you weren't just curious about the doctoral program, that you were reaching out to be some kind of a friend, mentor, protege, whatever. So whether you're a mentor or a protege, it's probably a good idea to think back to the people in your life, your professional life, your personal life, and reach out, even if it's somebody you went to high school with or college with. I think back to elementary school. There was a girl in my class who I said nothing to. Her name was Kristen Jablonski. She was beautiful and smart, but very quiet. And I like quiet people, notwithstanding my being a big mouth. And I've Googled her, and I wished I could find her. Not necessarily for mentorship or friendship, but I was curious how she is and what she's really like. The big mouths, the aggressive kids, I won't mention their names, I have no interest in. But Kristen Jablonski, I'm curious about, to this day. So think back to the people who were in your life from back when you were in elementary school, junior high school, college, first jobs, later jobs, your avocations, church, whatever, synagogue, mosque. Reach out, send out, it wouldn't be so terrible. The odds of any of them responding is small, so send out a half a dozen of them. See what happens. Only good things could happen. So they ignore you, big deal. All right, let's just move back into summary mode here, and we'll end this little episode of How to Do Life. So, not everybody wants a lot of friends. Some people are just happy with the 1 or 2 friends that they have that are close. Some people are even complete isolates, and they find that people are more trouble than they're worth. But most people feel good about having 1 or 2 close friends and a few casual friends. And if that's you, the key to all this is really to try to be balance. I'll screw up the quote, but it was Rabbi Hillel who said something like, "If I am only for me, who am I? If I am not for somebody." Anyway, you need to balance your being there for yourself as well as for others, and look for people who initially strike you as compatible, that ineffable something, and then strike the balance between asking about them, finding their issues, compromising, helping them, dealing with them, doing the things that you like with them that they like, whether it be intellectual or sports or confidant stuff or giggling or whatever it is. And then do make sure that it's a friendship that really makes you feel better about yourself afterwards, because that's a core purpose of friendship. Anyway, I hope you find that helpful. I'm Marty Nemko. I thank you for watching this edition of How to Do Life. If you're watching on YouTube, it's a standalone. If this is really the podcast, this is going to be converted into a podcast for people who want to listen on their iPhone, iPad, or iPhone, or whatever. In any event, if you're watching this on YouTube, I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. And in any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.